Rick, let's talk some Noles. The first depth chart was released. Any surprises for you?
I guess the only surprise for me would be I think the better wide receivers are third on the depth chart, and that's the future. Hakeem Williams, is a five-star. They're so high on him as a sophomore, but he's been unable to give it a go. He did nothing when they were here for 2 days practicing in Jacksonville. He's battling a hamstring. Elijah Moore is a young guy who they love. He's 6'4". He had 5 drops here in 2 practices. But, I look at some fifth-year seniors, guys like Williamson and Portier. I know they're second on that list. That's a little bit of a concern to me. They've been inconsistent. Malik Benson's the best. Then they're relying on, Jaylen Brown from LSU and the return of Ja'Kai Douglas, who's had injury problems. But that's it, Lauren. I mean, this team, they are so good when it comes to running the football, stopping the run, and they have NFL corners. I think the only problem right now going in is the inconsistency with their passing game.
Rick, I spoke with not only Jarian Jones a few weeks ago to get a scouting report on the secondary he leaves behind in Tallahassee, but also caught up with Kalen DeLoach now with the Bucs last week when they were in Jacksonville for joint practices. And, he stressed that he thinks this front seven can be better than it was a year ago. Jarian Jones said he thinks the secondary can be better than it was a year ago. Do you agree with that sentiment?
It's amazing because you had, I think, 6 draft picks, and then Akeem Dent is still on an NFL roster. He played quite a bit at safety for Florida State, along with DeLoach, another undrafted free agent who's, on the 2 deep right now in Tampa. Yeah, I think it's accurate. Patrick Payton's put on 15 pounds of muscle. He looks unblockable. Marvin Jones Jr. is in somewhat, it's similar to Trayvon Walker here with the Jaguars, where the way he was used in college, Georgia used him so many different ways that finally in his 3rd year, it feels like with Ryan Nielsen's defense here that we're going to get a taste of really what Trayvon Walker's all about. I met with Marvin Jones's dad, Shade Tree, the great Marvin Jones. It was probably a month ago, 5-6 weeks ago. He was in town here coaching Arena League football, and they didn't use him at Georgia the way that he's best. Now, Georgia doesn't have to apologize to anyone. They won 29 straight games and 2 national titles. But now you're going to see, with Adam Fuller, a real look at what they believe Marvin Jones Jr. does best, and that's getting after the quarterback. You look at a year ago, Joshua Farmer just took snaps away from Fabian Lovett, and, certainly an opportunity now to see Darrell Jackson because of that waiver issue. Wasn't able to give it a go last year. So I would agree with that. I think the potential is there that this defensive line could be better than what Florida State actually had last year.
Now, Rick, when we're talking about what the offense could potentially look like, obviously a lot of the conversations are around DJ and, how good and how little mistakes he can make. But when you look at the differences of how he played at Clemson, especially in 2022, and they used him a lot in the run game, and he was the dual side you could see, but at Oregon State, not so much. So far from what you've seen of their offense, what does it look like they are kind of game planning for that to look like?
Well, that's going to be the wild card because if you plug in the tape of DJ U back a couple of years ago when he was with Clemson taking on Florida State, he was absolutely sensational in that area when it came to, running the football. So if he can make that part of his overall game plan now, it's going to make him that much more difficult to cover. He's a guy that he weighs 255 pounds. He's absolutely sensational, and I don't think people often really consider what he can do when it comes to running the football. And behind him, they have 5 backs that they believe in. You pass to score, but you run to win, and that's what Florida State has this year. If they have leads, it's the best offensive line I've seen them since their national championship team going back 11 years ago. They have a ton of experience, and they have some good players on that line, so they should be able to run the football. And if they're able to run the football, they should be able to hang on to leads.
And that's the thing, Rick, is if Florida State does generate a lot of offense through running the ball, then you take the pressure off of DJ Uiagalelei. If they're not able to run the ball and the pressure's put back on him, how do you think he'll fare against Tech?
Well, that is the great unknown. all right, if they find themselves in panic mode, if all of a sudden there's a big turnover or there's a pick six and you're down by a couple of possessions, and all of a sudden you make Florida State one-dimensional, how are they going to be if they have to come from behind by passing the football? That is scary. There's not a lot of returning receptions on this football team. Florida State last year was very good, but they eked out wins. And, all of the footballs went to Coleman, Wilson, and Bell. The leading receiver is Toa Thiele out of the backfield. Now, there's a great example right there. Roydell Williams, I think, is going to be the bell cow, the transfer from Alabama. He's going to get the majority of the carries. But instead of sprinkling in these fifth-year seniors who've been inconsistent, I hope Mike Norvell has Roydell Williams in the backfield and takes Lawrence Toa Thiele and puts him in the slot, or takes the fastest kid on campus, Jalen Lucas, and puts him in the slot. But Mike Norvell is going to have to really call some great games this year and find the simplest ways to get the players that I just mentioned the football. If he can do that, I think they'll be okay. But if you're just talking about 3 wide receiver sets and trying to move the chains by passing to these wide receivers, I think it could be a very intriguing way here for Florida State. They could end up struggling.
Talking Noles with Rick Ballou on the Garber Auto Mall hotline. Couple more for you, Rick, as we know you are at Jaguars practice right now. What scares you the most? Big picture. You can give me a position group, a specific player. What or who scares you the most about Saturday in Dublin?
There's no question about it. It's wide receivers. I mean, they are just so inconsistent. There was a period here, one-on-ones, where 13 straight quarterbacks to wide receivers, there were incomplete passes. Now, we've been out here every day watching Jaguars do one-on-one drills. Can you imagine going 13 consecutive reps and not completing a pass? It's mind-boggling. That is the biggest concern. And kind of like the offensive line here with the Jaguars, I will say this, they know that in Tallahassee. They've heard it from everyone that they don't have a wide receiver that is near the caliber of the couple of guys they lost a year ago. So, if you can get one to step up, that's Malik Benson. That's better than what you have right now. I think Malik Benson caught, 14 balls in his career at Alabama. Douglas last year was hurt most of the season. He was huge in that come-from-behind win against Pittsburgh, but I think he ended up with, 11, 12, 13 receptions last year. So you don't have much experience, and you have the lack of consistency. The only other thing I'd throw in there is they really are going to miss Bethune and Deloach at linebacker, okay? They're so good on the line, and they're so good in the secondary. DJ Lundy's going to be fine. The Cam Riley kid who they got from Auburn is a huge linebacker. But, that if there was a problem on the defense, that is where it is at linebacker. I still think they're going to be okay, though. That side of the football should be real good this year.
Looking ahead to week 0, now right around the corner, Rick. So the Yellow Jackets they ended their season really strong. They won 3 of 5, the 2 losses, one of those being against a Georgia team that obviously we talk really high about, and I believe Clemson was the other. But we talked a ton about the run game for the Seminoles. Georgia Tech relies on their run game heavily, too, between Jamal Haynes and obviously quarterback Haynes King, both of those guys. But almost 60% of the time last year they were running the ball. We've talked a lot about how they look like grown men in the trenches for Florida State. How confident are you of them being able to stop the run against Georgia Tech?
Yeah, that's going to be a fun watch right there because Haynes King is so talented. He's a dual threat. I mean, he was a Jimbo recruit back at Texas A&M, and now he gets ready for his second season at Tech. But most of that offensive line is back. Their backs are back. They got a couple of 800-yard wide receivers who are back. And, if they're able to run, then that changes the entire complexion of the game because then all of a sudden you can put together these long drives and keep the Florida State offense on the other side. I do think, as I just mentioned, the linebackers, I think Cam Riley and DJ Lundy, this is a better run-stuffing linebacking core than it is a pass coverage linebacking core. So I think they'll have their moments, but I actually believe when it's, strength on strength here, I'm going to give the edge to Florida State's defensive front seven. I think there'll be times where they get hit, but overall I think Florida State will do a good enough job here And that's what they're going to take on early in the year because, a week from Monday or Labor Day evening, BC rolls into town with Bill O'Brien and Doug Marrone now as his offensive analyst upstairs. They're going to run the ball as well. So Florida State's going to see that in their first two opponents, dual threat quarterbacks, but teams that really rely on running the football.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how nervous are you for Saturday's noon kickoff?
I'm not nervous at all right now on a Tuesday, okay? I'm going to enjoy this Tuesday and then take it through the rest of the week. I've always, with the opening game, and this was with LSU the last couple of years, I've always kind of taken it as you don't know what you're going to see until you actually get out there. And I think with the new college football playoff rules, even after everything that happened to Florida State a year ago, they could lose this game on Saturday and then find their way and turn around. And as long as they win the ACC, they'll be okay. So I don't know if I'll be nervous. It's more of an anticipation. It's more of an excitement, if you will.
Well, you're better than me because I'm already nervous about Florida-Miami, and that's in 2 weeks. Rick, we really appreciate it. We look forward to catching up with you every other week this football season, talking Noles.
All right, ladies. Thank you.
Hey guys, Taylor Dahl here. Thanks so much for checking out 1010XL Seminoles page. If you're looking for more college football content, you can head over to the Gators page, or if you want some professional football content, check out our 1010XL Jaguars page.